This video was sparked by a comment I had on a recent video where we were kind of going back and forth talking about slowing down and how when you actually slow down, it seems like you are accomplishing more, and it doesn't seem like it should be that way. But I think it's because slowing down enough allows you to actually have the mental space to think about what the next right thing is in your home. And then shortly after that comment, I got on Facebook and saw a post from M is for Mama, and I didn't even read the whole post, and I actually still haven't, but the first thing that she said in the post that I did read, like one of the first few sentences, was that when you're in your home, there's just a lot of discerning that has to go on, and discernment in the home is in regards to doing what's right and doing what's almost right and knowing the difference between the two. Like I said, that's all I read of the post, but it was just interesting because it was right in line with what I had just been thinking about. And so I kind of wanted to talk about that today and how it's something that I have been thinking about. And actually, while I was filming this video, when I got to the dinner portion, there was so much going on, and I had to stop a lot, nurse, readjust the baby, take care of the toddler. There was just a lot going on. And in the midst of that, I realized that the meal that I was making was probably not one that should be made in its entirety at dinner, which, if you have been following along, I'm trying to get better about doing dinner prep in the morning. It's not a habit for me. It's not something that comes naturally, so I don't even think about it. But this was one meal that I realized this would be good to make, one morning when things are going really well, and then eat it literally the next day, so that I'm not doing that all at once. But what I did realize in that too is that God is so gracious with us, and a lot of us didn't learn homemaking as a skill growing up. So, like I've talked about many times on my channel, we may have learned practical things, how to clean a bathroom, how to keep the kitchen clean, how to cook a basic meal, like those things. But the actual art of homemaking in the midst of small children, all the other things that come along with that, is definitely a skill. And I just think that He's so gracious with us, because it takes a lot of trial and error in your own home to figure out what the next right thing is for you and your family. And honestly, it's different every day. Some days, you'll think, okay, I've got a hold on this, and the next day something throws you for a loop. There's an extra task that you have to do, which pushes a different task out of the way, or you're not able to get to it. And it requires a lot of self-awareness of what your personal season is, as well as what you are reasonably able to accomplish in a given day, because that's going to look different for everyone depending on your energy levels, your health, your season of life, how many children you have, what your husband does, how much outside help you have, if you have any. So it's important, I think, not to compare that to other people, which I'm speaking to myself here when I say these things, because I've struggled with all of this. But it's really a good thing, I think, to figure out what the top priorities are in your current season, and then work backwards from that. So for me, currently, I have a newborn and a toddler. We also have 2 dogs, and my husband works full-time, and then I'm home. And I also actually work very part-time when I have time as a virtual assistant. And so my priorities right now are very basic. Nourishing myself, taking care of the kids, making sure we have healthy dinner, and then I have to do my very part-time job, somewhere in there. It's really not that many hours a week, but it has to get done. So those are kind of what I'm working on. So there are days when we're still not really planning on leaving the house, or maybe we're just having people over, and the days that we don't do those things, I don't even always make it to getting dressed, because there's just so many other things that I have to do that take so much of my time. And so on the days that I do have the bandwidth for getting dressed, I'm usually picking comfy clothes, and I'd like to not do that eventually. I mean, nothing wrong with comfy clothes, especially when you're a mom, you're up and down on the floor and stuff, but I personally do like to feel a little bit put together. I like to feel like there's a difference between, my nighttime and my daytime, and when you don't get dressed, those can kind of blur together. So I don't love that, but that's just my current season, and hopefully, I'm working towards that not being a thing every day. But with the other things that I have to do, is what happens, and it's short-lived. It's a short time that you have a newborn, and it's a quick season, and I'm realizing that on my second already, how quick it really is. But yeah, those are my priorities right now, and I think everyone just has to figure out what theirs are and then work backwards from that. So if you don't have a newborn, you probably have a little bit more bandwidth than I do. I'm trying to think back to what I was doing when I was pregnant before I had another little baby, and it was a lot more. I was really keeping on top of the house. Like, I felt like most days it was pretty good. There was always a toy mess, but the bathroom was regularly cleaned, the floors were regularly vacuumed, the laundry was done pretty much all the time, and we also had healthy meals on the table. So everyone's seasons are different, and I think it's just crucial, like I said, to not compare and to figure out what you and your husband's priorities are together for your own family. So I'll take a little break from talking about that and tell you about this recipe that I found that I said I shouldn't have made in one day, but it turned out delicious. So it is what did they call it? Biscuit bombs, I think is what the recipe was called. I will link it below. Basically, you do a beef and cheese mixture, and then you put that inside of your biscuit dough. I did freshly milled biscuit dough, and then you wrap the biscuits around the beef mixture, and then you brush some butter on top, bake them up, and they kind of, obviously they're going to rise, biscuits rise, and they turn into like these delicious biscuit circles that have a delicious filling. But they definitely took some extra love to make. So if I make these again, which I would like to because we all really enjoyed them, I probably will plan to make them the day before, store them in the fridge, and then they'll be ready to go for the next night. I just think that that would be a lot more efficient for my current season, and it would just help me out a lot more. But I will have the recipe linked below. They were so good. So back to the topic of homemaking is just doing the next right thing, and the next right thing being kind of hard to figure out sometimes. There's always, something that's right and something that's almost right, and I don't think that that is a, set in like a punishing type of way, because like I said, God is gracious with us, and it's hard to learn what that is, and it can be different on any given day. But I know that just things come up, and sometimes you think, oh, but I wanted to get to this, or I didn't get to that. And in reality, when you think about it, unless it's like a life or death situation, it probably doesn't really matter to let that one thing go if something else came up and it needed your attention before, a couple other things that you had on the list. Which is why, again, I think it's important, I keep coming back to it, have your priorities and have them be realistic with what you can reasonably do. And then if you don't get to, one of them that's on the way bottom of the priority list, it's probably going to be okay. You'll be able to get to it tomorrow. You can bump it up to the top of your priority list the next day. Again, like I said, as long as it's not like feeding the people, like that needs to be the top priority and definitely needs to happen 3 times a day. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next one.